Hey guys, HazzaJC tier here. Who doesn't love a good old tier list? Nothing more gratifying than ranking things when you've not even seen most of them play at this point in time. We're talking about Red Bull Homeground, of course. The biggest event of the VCT off season is happening in Berlin in a couple of days' time. I'm going to be flying out there and hopefully making plenty more videos, but I thought, why not get the ball rolling by giving my initial thoughts? This event is probably going to be the best benchmark that we end up getting to see the quality of these teams before we head into the 2025 season. I've been putting in plenty of work to get new uploads out, and the majority of you that watch these are not subscribed, so make sure to hit that button and the bell alongside it. As you can see, this is the selection of teams which I have, all of them, with the exception of FOKUS, who were invited, being partnered. Now, my reason for that is we have an international play-in stage with a couple other familiar names, such as G2 Gozen, but G2 VCT, BBL and FUT being the most instantly recognizable teams that we have, and for that reason I've slotted them straight into my tier list to make it a collection of 9 teams and where it is I think they're going to place. Diving straight in, let's kick it off with BBL, a completely new identity to a beloved name within the franchise system, and a move to an international roster for the international play-ins. It makes plenty of sense, of course. Marknu has had access to the BBL books for the last 5 months since July to set up what he wants and what his vision is for this team in the future. Now, it would be easy enough to say that this is simply his own mind child, but there are plenty more pieces at play. We've had Pal come in as a secondary coach, and really it's more of a co-coaching duo that these guys are putting up to build what it is that they wanted with the trials that they had. And Yampy in as an IGL as well, a familiar face, someone who has donned this role previous, but never been given a project his own to actually set up in the way that he wanted. A couple of times he needed to step in for Liquid to fulfill that duty, but as I said before, no creative control. This now has had time to stew, but maybe not enough time to prac. They were on boot camp coming into this one. I think the difficult part is you're up against a very stacked, consistent FUT team and a G2 roster, which again has only made one change, and for both of them the dual list. So I find it hard personally to see them being able to get through that part of the qualification stage. At the same time, I also feel that with it being best of ones in the double elimination bracket that we have here for international play-ins, there's kind of every chance that they still qualify anyway, and they were yet to drop a map in the EMEA last chance qualifier run, which they had. For me, I don't want to throw them under the bus. I don't want to say that they're trash or anything like that. For what it's worth, I actually really like this team, you know, personal feelings aside. But for now, I think it's fair enough to dunk them in the D tier. I'm sorry, man. This is a terrible way to start the video. You know, I'm going to put them up into C. I'm going to put them up into C. I don't think I can put them in D tier right now, because this is a project which I have faith in the long term. And now, this is where things are going to get interesting. Now, the reason why I said things are going to get a little bit more interesting is because of the next team, C9. This team, I think there's a world where they make another crazy finals run. They end up doing really well like they did at Homeground last year. Well, second place finish just behind FNATIC. But a lot of that team, very different to what it is now. We know the stat. 3 IGLs in the last 3 years, every single one of them retired with Vanity now gone. They needed a consistent pickup, and they went for Rossi from T1. Now, on paper, I really like this idea. You're looking at a guy who led that team, sort of co-called alongside Carpe to Shanghai, but at the base level maybe didn't have the right kind of theory to actually challenge those international teams. Sen City Classic hasn't looked great for these guys. A map win against NRG is nice and all, but my fear is that they're just too individually reliant, and the system that Rossi's going to try and play here is only going to compound that issue a little bit more. Is so execute heavy. If teams can figure them out back into their retake, at least from the attack side here, they're going to have problems. From the defender side, does that plan creation then necessarily look any better in terms of how they want to set up? I don't know. Oxy can really be the saving grace of these guys, and again, so much of how they played last year was based off of him, but I don't just feel overly confident about their chances. In terms of a project, I think Zeppa and Imi have had so much time together to prove that this can be a good team. So for me, this might be a bit controversial. Maybe it isn't. I was going to match them in C tier, sort of with BBL, and have them kind of on that level. But for the sake of my argument, man, I'm going to put them in D tier. Look, I don't care. Shoot me, right?
Whoa, 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 whoa. Stop right there. It's me, Hazza from the future. You can't put C9 in the D tier. How you lost your marbles? Let me tell you why. C9 always do well in the off-season. They won 10 last year. They got second place last year. EMEA bias is clear, you bastard. Put them in upper C tier. BBL ain't even gonna qualify, bro. Put them in the fucking C tier.
FNATIC up next. A couple of changes which they made to the team which they finished the end of the year with. Durka departing for Vitality, and Leo still on an extended hiatus, with the intent to play with him in VCT next year, but no real updates on where he's going. They brought in Kayak on the dual list to replace Durka, and Sayonara on a bit of a flex role. Now, just alone, I'm going to whack them in A tier. I will place them first and give the reasoning afterwards. In terms of Kayak, huge boots to fill. You're talking about Durka being the guy who had the most damage per round, the most kills per round, KD, all of that in champs, right? An irreplaceable player by every right. But Kayak, cut from a cloth which does a lot of the things that FNATIC would want. Someone who can be flexible. He can play most of the duelists, 4 of the 7. He can play the Gecko if you want him to, and do something a little bit different. Maybe you could even put him on a smoke if you wanted to, but I think with Chronicle and Boaster in the team doesn't make sense. Incredibly flexible kid. Someone who can take initiative, take fights by himself, and do a lot of the things which Durka used to do for FNATIC when they were as successful as they were, and continue to do, and was a real driving force behind their success. It's going to take a lot of time for him to get up to speed. Same with Sayonara. I think the stage has to be a question for both of these guys. Sayonara didn't play any stage games in Spain. He didn't qualify to that stage in the competition to make the grand final to be there. He didn't perform how we wanted him to in the play-ins grand final either. However, statistically and by role, he has been such a fulfilling character within the space that I just seem to feel that with the right guidance and the time to gel into this system, like we know Boaster is capable of doing and mentoring with names like Hero that we saw last year, that's where I can put them. In A, it's going to be a consistent, a solid team with the backbone that they already have. Maybe Alpha's picking up more duelist roles. I'm not too sure. Is Sayonara going to be stepping on toes, trying to pick Sova when you've got Chronicle there as well? I doubt it. I think Chronicle probably keeps that. And is this a guy that's going to replace Leo like for like? No, I also think Leo, just as much as Durka, is an irreplaceable name. However, they will do their job, and that's why I have them in A tier. FOKUS next. It would have been so easy to just say that these guys completely suck and would bomb out, right? When I saw that they were in the event initially, they got their invite, they didn't even have a roster. And management, coaching staff, none of those guys even knew who they were playing with. However, I think they've managed to pull something quite nice out the bag. The roster that they've ended up landing on has a lot of names that people are going to remember from Tier 1 in VCT EMEA last year, such as Hoodie, such as Mystic. While they didn't have a great time, I think that they can do some damage here. And with Zus in the mix as well from Mouse, with the year that he had, it's going to look pretty healthy for them. Sure, his playstyle sometimes as a duelist can lean pretty heavily on the operator, and I think the better teams will find a way to suss out what these guys are up to. I don't want to rate them too highly here, to be honest. And having already put Cloud9 in D tier, I feel like it would be a total disservice to kind of like you know, make this seem any worse, I kind of want to put them around this level in between the two. I think I'm going to still settle on D tier, because if we're being brutally honest here, FOKUS, this is still a tier 2 team. This is a team which, if you look at recent results, only had 2 series to sort of work themselves together. They've had a boot camp since then. They're on boot camp right now, and I think it will improve. But is it enough time to show up to this event against these kinds of names and put up numbers? I'm not too sure. Best of ones might be the place to do it, but I think D tier is probably about as far as I can put them right now. With that in mind, D tier, you know, it is at the bottom, but I wouldn't say by any means I'm saying that these guys suck. It's just the bar that you set, I suppose, and maybe a bit of bias creeps in there. Speaking of bias, begins with a B, so does the tier that I'm putting FUT in. Honestly, Zeus is an upgrade to CNED, and the core that they've already got is looking really nice. And sure, they didn't have the best of years, performance dropped off a little bit, but this guy's an absolute demon, man. Took them a while to warm up into this one against Pacific, right? But that's the thing. FUT are a team which know how to reverse sweep a best of 5, and Pacific love to choke at 2 maps up, so because they're still a very young team. It just needs time, man. Zeus is an unbelievable player. His stats looked so good last year. I see absolutely no reason why they don't improve on the whole. In terms of map pool, I think that's where things could get a little bit interesting. It's another reason why I've got someone like C9 towards the bottom. I wasn't huge on how their Pearl looked, for example. In terms of what FUT end up doing with that, man, who knows? We'll just have to see. But that's where I put them for now. I think it's a fair assessment. G2, where to put them? I think they've upgraded. Everyone should see it that way. Jorgamo is one of the, if not the best duelist players that we have in the world, or at least in Americas at this point in time, because of his flexibility, his versatility, just how dynamic this team is going to be now that Valen has what I see to be the final chess piece, or the final piece to the puzzle that he needed, where he couldn't really get any more out of Icy last year. I think Jorgamo gives that extra sort of 10-20% even. They looked heavily reliant on him opening every single round when they played Spotlight, but I think that's kind of a one-off event and part and parcel of what you would be running in that situation. There's still a world where FUT and BBL beat them first past the post and end up qualifying with those grueling best of ones. Whether they qualify or not could very well come down to just one map in the end if they end up getting knocked to the lowers. But in my opinion, this is another consistent team. And sort of in reality, I think had BBL faced against everyone else, maybe I would be seeing them like actually in the main event, because I can place them above some of the other names here and them not qualify. I'm purely basing my opinion on what I think of the rosters. And for G2, that core of 4 is looking really strong. Jorgamo is a net positive. We're in a Neon meta at the moment. Everything's pointing in the direction of them coming up with the goods. Heretics, my beloved, are EMEA Grand Finalists at Champs for the first time since 2021. They fell short at the final hurdle, but there's a lot to take away. And that learning experience for a roster of 4 players who were rookies at this level come last year, and the IGL of Boo, who's proven everyone wrong that he can call to the highest standard of international Valorant that we have, there's no reason for them not to push onwards from this. Now, I know from speaking to Benji in his stream, there's a chip on his shoulder. You know, these guys don't want their first event win to be something in the off-season to then look back and not, you know, take that international event after the 4 finals that they had last year, 2 in EMEA, 1 Shanghai, 1 Champs. But I got to put them in S tier here. I think you would be doing them a disservice to put them any lower than some of these other teams where changes have been made all across the board. Consistency has to play a huge factor. I know that throughout the year they had their ups and downs, peaks and troughs. There were times when they didn't really look like a top 3 team within the region and they put their foot off the pace, but there were other times when they did look like world beaters and maybe should have had the final in the end. So that's the version of Heretics that we want to see. I'm going to stick them in S for good measure. That's where they stack up. Very exciting teams left, and 2 which I'm most excited to see at this event, to be honest. And the first of them is going to be Karmine Corp. Now, I really like the direction that they've gone. It's all in from the French org to qualify to Paris 2025 for champs. Now, sure, there aren't any French players in the team necessarily, but you've got that fabric in the coaching staff with Zeish still, and the Egyptian connection with Aves that has come in. I mean, who else do we have? Elite, Sugetsu, and Sadak pulling the strings, man. This is a ridiculous roster. It looks so all over the place on paper, and with Sadak having only come in recently, considering the visa issues and whatnot, and actually starting to work with this team, I think they would have had about 2 weeks in the end for things to work out for them. They won KCX4. How much that show match means, I don't think all too much, but it just shows the capabilities of Sadak's calling, I think, more than anything. On Sunset, he was so consistently being able to read Flyer on Koi and kind of know where it is that the openings were, to not read into it like too heavily. But he's a renaissance man. He can get the best out of youngsters. He did it on Loud so many times. Think Kawazine, Tui's, QCK, all of these youngsters that came in and were refined. Aves and Elite being those guys. Elite especially is someone who performed brilliantly on BBL last year, and they would be kind of unlucky not to have kept, to be honest. I think the sky is the limit for these guys. Now, it's going to take a bit of time for them to get ship shape. I don't think we're going to see that performance from them immediate, but I have high hopes for this team, and there's a world where they make a much deeper run. I will put them upper B for now. Final team on the tier list is T1, a much remodeled T1 with little bits and pieces from all over the place. Meteor, who has left Gen G after Pacific, getting their first ever international win in Shanghai. You got Buzz from DRX, Stax, who'd already made that move towards the latter end of the year and had a bit of time with them in the Pacific playoffs. I'm kind of liking what we've got going on here though as well. Sylvan has come in. There's plenty to be excited about, plenty to shout about for this tier 1 team, and I am going to, for that reason, put them in like upper mid B. I think I want to put them a little bit higher than some of these other ones. I'll probably put them top end of B just because of some of the maps that they've already shown. Split, Pearl, they've immediately adapted to this new meta. They've been thinking about it quite a lot. Autumn has been building up team chemistry with these guys for a few weeks now. They're feeling really comfortable playing off of one another, what the comms look like, the structure, the staff that they have. They've got like 3 or 4 different coaches anyway. I'm seeing Carpe and 1010 even from the academy team rocking up with these guys to their play-ins anyway, just for confidence, just for vibes. The synergy's looking good. They're running some really crazy picks on different maps like Vise on Bind. There's a lot to be seen and a lot to be said of these guys. It's whether they can show it in practice or not. There's definitely a world where I put them like C tier, lower C tier maybe, but for the good, at the peak, it's upper B. So this is the tier list that I settle on. Now, my thoughts have been a little bit all over the place. I was rushing to get this one out. Maybe you see it in what my predictions end up looking like, but this is the lineup. I hope you all have enjoyed the video. Let me know your picks in the comments below, whether you agree, disagree, maybe you do, maybe you don't. We'll find out very soon. Make sure to tune in to Red Bull Homeground starting on November 20th with the international playing stage and concluding on the 23rd. That's all from me for now. I'll see you soon.